Did you know that only 9% of freelance writers or editors ever reach the six-figure mark? It's not because those people have more talent than everyone else. It's because those people who do cross six figures, they know which actions to take and which ones to avoid. So, in this episode, I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons that you're not a six-figure writer or editor yet, and I'm going to tell you how to change that. Welcome to Forward Writing, where we talk about how to move your writing forward. I'm Jonathan Jordan. I'm an award-winning ghostwriter, book coach, and editor. And today we're not going to talk so much about writing as we are about writing business. That's right. We're going to talk about the business of writing and how to build a six-figure income from writing and editing. Obviously, that's not something we can cover in one short video together, but what I did want us to cover today are 5 reasons that you are not earning six figures yet. Now, there could be a million reasons, but these are 5 that I have seen come up in my own story as I was trying to build a freelance writing business, and they are ones that I have seen be common pain points for many, many others. And once they addressed these pain points, they were able to build a sustainable income. Because I'm telling you now, I've been right where you are. Oh, let's get right into it. The number one reason that you are not earning six figures as a freelancer yet is that you have no portfolio or no social proof. Look, if you are just starting out, of course you have no portfolio. Of course you have no social proof. That's part of it. Everyone starts at zero. Everyone does. Okay. So if you are just starting out, here is how you start building a portfolio. You become your own first client. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like robbing Peter to pay Paul, but let me explain a little bit about what that actually looks like. So, when I decided that I wanted to learn how to be a book editor, I knew absolutely nothing about book editing or how publishing works. So I started Googling things and started learning how the industry works. But then I realized I needed to practice because how else was I going to be able to do that work for another client? So what I did was I went into my graveyard files on my computer. I found a bunch of old writing that I had never done anything with. And because it was old and I hadn't looked at it in a long, long time, I was able to treat it like it was a client's work. And I was able to edit it in a way that I never would have been able to do if I had tried editing it at the same time that I wrote it. And so I'll show you exactly what I did. I ended up self-publishing 2 books from all that old work. One of them is a poetry book. The other one is a collection of plays that I wrote back in high school. But I hadn't looked at any of that material in so long that I was able to pretend it was someone else's. And so then when I was editing and when I was self-publishing those titles, I made all of my worst mistakes on my own material so that it wouldn't have to happen to a paying client. I did not try to sell these books really. I wasn't concerned about getting them, distributed. They were literally just experiments. They were just ways for me to learn the business and to learn the craft. But here's what you need to do to turn your own work into your starter portfolio. You're going to do before and after screenshots. Okay. So before you do anything to that document, try not to cringe too much when you read your old writing. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a screenshot of the original version and you're going to label it something like unedited page X, and you're just going to put it to the side. Then you're going to edit the crap out of that page. You don't need to do the whole thing. Focus on one page for now. And you're going to use everything you've learned about writing and editing to make that page better. And now you're going to screenshot the edited page. Now you're going to go into Canva, you're going to open up a template, and you're going to drop both of those files in there so that prospects have a before and after view of how you edit and write. So now you're taking a skill that usually is invisible. Like great editing is invisible. You can't see what was changed. You can't see what was fixed in the final book. But now you are turning that into a visible skill where they can actually look very quickly and see how you improved the text. And if you don't have your own stuff to use, ask around, see if some writing friends are willing to let you do that with their work, do some before and after shots. Or if you've already had a couple of clients, see if they're open to letting you do that. Maybe it was a newsletter that you wrote for them or something very simple like that. But building a portfolio using before and after screenshots, I'm telling you now, it is the easiest, most visual way to help a prospect see your skills. Okay. So you've got to start building a portfolio. You've got to start building social proof. And too many people wait until people find them. Like they're waiting to build a portfolio for when they get clients. And so they end up in this chicken egg problem. No, forget that. Be your own first client. Start building that portfolio right now so that you can use it to get more clients who are not you and who will actually pay you. All right, the number two reason that you are not a six-figure writer yet is you are depending on freelancer platforms. And I'm talking about places like Upwork and Fiverr. Like you are wholly dependent upon them bringing you business. And I know that's the case because that's where I was stuck for 6 years. Like literally from 2013 to 2019. I was really only using Upwork, Fiverr, and another site that I won't even mention. That's the only place I was getting business from because I didn't know how to go out there and find my own clients. And frankly, I was scared to. Like, I was scared to go out there and talk about what I was doing and try to find my own clients. I just didn't know how to do it. But the problem with places like Upwork and Fiverr are they are a race to the bottom. You are competing against freelancers from all over the world, and many of them are going to be willing to charge less than you. So you're really invisible on that platform. Like prospects can't get to know you, they can't see if you're a personality fit. They are literally only looking at pricing. And so the best thing I ever did was give up on Upwork and Fiverr and all the others. Like the day that I decided to quit those platforms and not rely on them anymore, that was when I started making real headway with my business because I had to now go out there and find my own clients. And it gave me a new drive and a new focus that I hadn't had when I was dependent on the platforms. Now, I do want to mention one exception to this rule, which is Reedsy, because technically they are a freelancer platform, but they operate more like an editorial matching agency. And so I like Reedsy and I'm on there. I've been very impressed with what they do so far, and I find they attract a higher level of clientele than those other platforms. So if you are already on Reedsy, I'm not telling you to go delete your account. They're not paying me to say this. This isn't an ad. I actually do like them and I have a profile with them, but I am completely off of all those other freelancer platforms because they never did anything really to greatly benefit my business. So yeah, if you are depending on a freelancer platform to bring you business, then you are going to continue to stay stuck. It's time to quit them and it's time to start building your own pipelines. Which brings us to the number three reason that you are not a six-figure freelancer yet is because you are not networking. You are not getting out there and meeting the right people, probably because you're depending on those freelancer platforms or you're waiting for people to just magically come to you. What changed for me was when I started using my network and I started telling people what I was doing and being more open about writing and editing and actually discussing it with people, which does take a little bit of courage because I get it. You are afraid of the snarky comments from family members. You're worried about the haters from your past. You're worried about Trevor, who's in the next cubicle over, who laughs at anyone who dares to have a dream because he has no dreams of his own. Trevor's an a-hole. Like, we can all agree on that. But yeah, you're not networking. And that doesn't mean you need to show up to a bunch of events and be all cheesy and corny and have the name tag on and shake your hand and exchange business cards. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being open with the people who are already around you. Your first client is closer than you realize. Case in point, my first paying client was a coworker. And so, yeah, you just kind of have to start talking about what you're doing and what you were wanting to build. And you have to, again, you just have to have a little bit of courage to deal with the fact that there are going to be some people who say ugly things, but that's okay. Those people are not going to hire you. So forget about them. What you're worried about is the people who actually will work with you and to like you and want to support you. So, doing that social media post that says, hey, I'm looking for writing projects, whether that's a newsletter or a website, I'd appreciate any referrals. You're Aunt Susie might know someone who just started a business and they need help with their website because they're dyslexic and they're not confident in their writing abilities, and they put your name forward and say, "Oh yeah, you should work with so and so." And that could be your first paying gig. So yeah, your first client, they're so much closer than you realize if you just do the tiniest bit of networking. But if you really want to scale things, then keep paying attention because I'm going to give you what is some networking gold. Because if I had to start my business over, here's exactly what I would do. Okay, so get out some pen, get out paper. You're going to make two columns, and then you're going to have five things on each side. Okay, so first column, you're going to write businesses, and you're going to write down five local businesses that you frequent. That could be a restaurant, that could be an auto shop, that could be a coffee shop, just anywhere that you go on a regular basis where there's a better chance that they're going to recognize your face and name. That's who you're going to put on the list. Oh yeah, bookshops. You should have a bookshop on the list. If you have an indie bookshop you frequent and they do like events and need help writing flyers, you need to have that on your list too. And then the next time you go to that business, you are going to ask them if they have any writing needs. And you're just going to connect with them as a fellow business owner. You're going to say, "Hey, I'm starting up a writing and editing business, and I would love to write something for you. Do you need help with your website? Are you building a newsletter? Do you need help with some social media posts?" Like, just be open-ended, because all you're worried about right now is building your portfolio and building relationships. And you know what? They might say no. That's the worst thing that can happen, is they say no, but they'll probably appreciate the effort because they're a business owner themselves and they know how hard it is. So they might tell you, "Hey, we already have someone who does that for us, but I know someone who needs exactly what you're offering." So that's not a loss. If they can connect you to someone else, then you've won. That no can turn into a yes. And you know what? Sometimes those businesses, they might have someone they're working with, and then something changes. That person quits, or that person, increases their fees, and they might come knocking on your door. So even if someone tells you no, you should still be ready to tell them, "Can I be your backup option? Would you be willing to keep me as a backup, just in case?" And you'd be surprised how many people would actually say yes to that. Okay, now the second column. The second column, you're going to label nonprofits. Okay. And then you're going to make a list of five local nonprofits whose mission you agree with. Okay. So maybe it's the local pet shelter, maybe it's, a church or temple, or wherever you go to worship. Maybe it is a domestic violence shelter. Whatever causes are important to you and that you care about, you need to write those down, because what you're going to do is you're going to approach these five nonprofits and you're going to ask them how you can help their mission with writing. And so you're going to say, "Hey, I'm building a writing business, but while I'm not that busy, I want to make sure that I can help your mission. So do you need help with a volunteer training manual? Or do you need help with a donor newsletter? Do you need help with your next fundraising activity? Can I do a write up for it? And you'd be surprised how many of them will say yes because you're offering free labor to them and they're a nonprofit. They don't have a whole lot of money. Okay. So you're not trying to land them as a client. You are building your network because guess what? Those nonprofits, they have board members and those board members do own businesses. Those board members are very well connected. And so now you have an in for later on, then you can connect with them, maybe do some writing jobs for them, or maybe they connect you with someone else. And if nothing else, like you find that as a commonality with other people in the local community that you're able to name drop the nonprofit and say, hey, I helped them with this project. And then people kind of perk up and they're like, oh, hey, I love their mission. That's so cool that you got to work with them. So tell me more about what you do. So start with that low hanging fruit. Just look around who's in your community already. Start mentioning it to people. It does take a little bit of courage, but I'm telling you now, if you just start that process, you will be surprised where it leads. All right, number four, the reason that you are not earning six figures yet is because you're saying yes to the wrong kind of work. Okay, so early on when I first started my business, I thought that it would be smarter to do web copy because I thought, well, everybody has a website, right? I had a little bit of sales experience at that point, so I thought, I can probably help people with this. And it totally bombed. I offered to do the website copy for a buddy who was starting a business and he did not take my advice. His business no longer exists. I'm not saying those two things are connected, but they're probably connected. Um, but then also, I started doing some writing for this lady who she worked with politicians. I don't know how else to say it. And she needed like write ups on them. And so she hired me to do some work. And I absolutely hated it. I said yes to it because it was a little bit of money, not much, but I just needed to say yes to stuff. And I quickly discovered that that was the wrong kind of work for me to do. And so to this day, I really don't get involved in anything super political because it is soul sucking, to say the least. Now, that might feed your soul. Some people love political stuff. So by all means, if that's your deal, there's plenty of people out there who will probably hire you. And so it's really easy when you're starting out and even when you've been doing this for a while, it is so easy to just say yes to anything because you're worried about the feast and famine cycle. You're worried about, well, what if I don't have a new client later on? And I've been there. I went 6 months one time without a single new ghostwriting client, and what got me through was doing a bunch of random work for previous clients. Okay, so sometimes you just have to make do, but you will regret it if you keep saying yes to the wrong kind of work that just sucks your soul and gives you no joy. It's just not worth it. But there is another side to this issue. So maybe you're good at saying yes to the right kind of work, but maybe you're too good at saying yes to any story that is interesting to you. And so what some people fall into, the trap they fall into, I should say, is they start saying yes to work for exposure and saying yes to work for royalties, especially if they are on the book side of things. So don't hear me as saying you can't do free work sometimes. There is a time to be generous, especially what we talked about in number 3 about needing to network, needing to build your portfolio, like all of that stuff. Sometimes you're going to need to do a little bit of free work early on, but you always have the option, even then, to do bartering. So in the example I gave earlier with like if you reach out to an auto shop, they may not be able to pay you, but you could say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to write this for you or edit this for you if you give me a free oil change. So don't be afraid to barter. But working for exposure basically goes nowhere. Exposure kills. If you've read a Jack London book, you already know that. You are not going to get anything out of that arrangement unless they are a huge celebrity. And if they are a huge celebrity, then they can afford to pay you something. So never, 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 never work just for exposure because you will not get anything out of it. They might get something out of it, but you will not, and you'll have wasted your time and you will have probably had to turn down other opportunities that actually would have paid you. I would say the same is mostly true for working for royalties. So I had this come up a couple years ago where a prospect was sent my way, but he didn't want to pay my ghostwriting fee, which honestly, my ghostwriting fee wasn't even huge at the time, not compared to what it is today. And he didn't want to pay it. And he said, look, man, this story, my story is going to be a huge bestseller. Like, this thing is going to sell millions of copies. And I would hate for you to miss out on having a piece of that. So I would rather come up with an agreement for you to help me with the book. And then you're going to get paid a chunk of the royalties on the back end. And he tried to make it sound so, so good. And you know what? His story, it actually was pretty interesting. There were some things he shared with me. I was like, yeah, I could see myself working on this book. This would be kind of fun, actually. But that was where I had to draw the line because I have a family, I have bills to pay. And so you can't ask me to work for 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years on a book and make nothing from it. And then I'm having to turn down people who are willing to pay me. So, yeah, it's very rarely worth it to say yes to a royalty arrangement. The exception is if the person is a celebrity or they already have some huge marketing machine that is working for them. And usually that person is big enough to pay you at least a little something up front. Even if they don't want to do your whole fee up front, they're at least willing to say, yeah, let me pay you this amount and then we'll do a royalty split down the road. But again, only do that when you're very well established, you know where your next paycheck is coming from, and you know that this person has the clout and the credibility to be able to make the royalty arrangement worth it. But when you're first starting out and it's someone that you've never heard of, yeah, don't do it. Don't do the exposure. Don't do the royalty arrangement. All right, the number 5 reason that you are not a 6-figure writer yet is because you are using a bad pricing model. I see this happen all the time, and it's happened to me. So for the first couple years that I was doing ghostwriting in particular, I kept my rates at the same level because I was letting other people set the pricing. I was working with a couple of different publishers who they set the pricing with their clients because they like sold publishing packages as part of their hybrid services. And I didn't have any say in that. So when they said, okay, you make $10,000 ghostwriting a book. Now, in the beginning, I didn't know better. And I thought, man, $10,000 to write a book, that sounds amazing. I was just happy to make anything. But then I started talking with other ghostwriters and other editors and realizing, man, they are making a lot more than me. And some of these people have less experience than I do. So several years in, I finally got the courage to start saying no to those low ball jobs and started setting my own pricing. And it hurts in the beginning, believe me. Like, there have been times it's been hard for me to say no to a book pitch when I feel like I could probably win that contract. I think I could probably do that one pretty easily, but when it's way under what I know my value is, I have to say no so that I have the room and the margin for the people who are willing to pay me what I'm worth. And so a lot of people stay stuck in that place where they are letting everyone else set the pricing for them. And they think they don't know how to set their own value. They don't know what their own worth is. So I'm telling you now that you are probably worth more than you realize. And it's okay to start out with letting someone else set the pricing, but you need to give yourself a deadline. You can't stay in there. But I've seen people who they have been ghostwriting and editing for 20, 30 years, and they're still making the same amount that they were 10 years ago because they are letting other people set the price. Or what's maybe even worse is they're not scaling their pricing. is they set their pricing on their website a long time ago and they think, well, I can't go up. I've got people who hire me multiple times and I just can't do that to them. And so they're hurting themselves because and a lot of times they're doing the same work at the same price, even though inflation has gone up. And there's nothing wrong with going back to your clients and saying, hey, I need to raise my prices, or you can grandfather in your old clients, but then your new clients pay the new rates. Like there's a lot of ways that you can handle that. But when you are gaining experience and you are gaining accolades, so you have a project that wins an award or gets a bestseller status, you need to be scaling your pricing because you've proven your worth. So don't be afraid of doing that because there is a fear factor there. I get it. You're afraid if you go up in your pricing, then you're going to have less work to do. And that probably will be true for a little while. Like you probably will see a drop off because you've gone up in price, but in the long run, it will make up for itself and you will be happier. And then the third piece of having a bad pricing model is I find a lot of freelancers continue to think of themselves like they are an hourly employee. They're even quoting their prices on an hourly basis. And so they're telling people, oh, I will edit your book for $50 an hour or $100 an hour or whatever their rate is. Or some ghostwriters even do that of, oh, yeah, my ghostwriting rate is $100 an hour, 150, whatever. That's a terrible model, and not just because I don't think it pays you well, but because of the mindset behind it. You're thinking of yourself like an employee instead of thinking of yourself as an entrepreneur. Now, one pricing model I think is a little bit better that some people do is they do a word count model and they say, well, here's my price per word. And I do think that's really great for most editors. For ghostwriters, that can have its drawbacks too, because you don't always know what the word count is going to be in the beginning. And so you could run into an issue where the book ended up longer than what you originally quoted. And so what do you do now? Do you do the extra work and you just don't deal with it? Do you charge them more and risk them being angry that they're having to pay you more? So, what I've chosen to do over the past couple of years is to do a hybrid model of pricing where I take into consideration the word count as an estimate. I take in consideration the estimated timeline for the project because you shouldn't be charging the same amount for a 6 month project as you would for a 2 year project. Like you have to think about that. Or if someone's wanting a really tight turnaround, if they want something done in 3 to 4 months, that's almost impossible to do with ghostwriting. But if they do, that's a lot of extra time and you're gonna have to say no to some other work. So then you're going to need to charge more for that. So you look at the word count estimate, the timeline estimate, and then you add a 10% buffer on top of that for anything that's unanticipated, and be very transparent about that with people to say, hey, I know this is my value. This is what I charge for this type of project, because that way we have flexibility with the word count. We have some flexibility with the timeline. You'll find more people are pretty okay with that because so many other industries operate that same way. They kind of have that 10% buffer in there anyway. So I find that is a much better pricing model. If you're charging hourly, you need to get away from that as quickly as you can. If you're charging by word count, you can probably carry on like that for a little bit, especially if you're still early on. But I think the sooner you can get to the hybrid model of pricing, where you're looking at the whole big picture, you're going to be a much happier person. All right. So, as a quick recap, here are the 5 reasons that you are not a six-figure writer yet. You have no portfolio or social proof. Number 2, you're depending on freelancer platforms like Upwork and Fiverr. Number 3, you're not networking. Number 4, you're saying yes to the wrong kind of work. And number 5, you're using a bad pricing model. But all of those are issues you can overcome. You know the fixes now. And If this helped you and now you have a clearer vision of how to get to that six-figure mark, then you are going to love my self-paced course, Word Up. It's 28 lessons that walk you through everything you need to do to build a six-figure writing business. I cover everything from, launching your business, craftsmanship, which just means improving your writing so you can charge more for great work, to even how to protect yourself in the age of AI. All of that is covered in there. Oh, and honestly, I think the best part is that you can get through it really, really quickly. Like it's only 28 lessons, and each lesson you can knock out in an hour. And I give you practical steps that you can take at the end of every single lesson, like something you can tangibly do. And so, again, every single day you can have a task to do, and in a month's time, you can be way ahead of where I was. You don't have to spend 10 years trying to build a six-figure business. It took me almost that long. If you will follow the lessons, you will get there much, much faster than I did. I really do believe that, but you do have to put the work in. You have to put the work in. So I'm going to have a link down in the description so you can go check that out more if you want to. And in the meantime, if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to Forward Writing so that you can get behind the scenes insights on publishing, writing tips, freelancing tips like this one, and book marketing advice. Sometimes we talk about that here. But in the meantime, I am cheering you on in your business. I want you to win. I want you to succeed. So keep moving your writing forward.